Is AI really going to take your job as a developer? In the past couple of years, we've heard all kinds of bold claims, from vibe-driven code magically writing entire apps to talk of mass layoffs thanks to coding agents. But more and more, research has shown what we've known all along. AI is just another productivity tool that developers can add to their kits. And just like any tool, the LLMs underlying these coding agents have their limits. They tend to struggle with more complex tasks and mature code bases. They can really help with some tasks, but when things get complex, that's where you come in. Just like mentoring a junior developer, you need to check the code that AI produces. You need to look out for bugs, for security flaws, or that one horrifying pattern it borrowed from a 2013 Stack Overflow answer. The expertise of seasoned developers is needed to take the code from prototype to production ready, to take it from code to quality code. Hi, I'm Jodie Birchall, a data scientist and developer advocate at JetBrains. I've been working with LLMs for a number of years and have a solid understanding of their strengths and limitations. In this video, my colleagues and I are going to show you how to critically evaluate code created by AI coding agents. We're going to show you what these models are good at, where they fall short, and how to use them to get the best performance. And critically, we're going to show you that while these are important new productivity tools for developers, that they're definitely not at the level of replacing developers yet. Hey Marco, how are you?
Hey Jodie, what's up?
I'm good. I actually have an idea. Are you in?
I'm in.
Okay. So Marco, I've grabbed you because I have a favour to ask. So what I want to be able to illustrate is the actual strengths and limitations of AI coding agents, because we keep hearing all this stuff like vibe coding is going to let you make an app without any knowledge of development, or, AI is going to replace junior developers. And I want to know how we can show this isn't true.
Right, I got something for you. So what I essentially thought we could do is get 3 senior developers here from JetBrains, our colleagues, have a look at 3 different projects, from a web-based Java application to algorithms to even writing our own custom bcrypt hashing function.
Ooh.
So real-life tasks, essentially. And our colleagues are going to ask Julie to do a couple of things with these projects and then review the code. And then we'll see if we actually still need human help in the process.
Yeah, I kind of suspect we will, but...
So do I.
Yes, I think it's going to be very nice to concretely see where human expertise come into play and work with the AI agent.
Yes, let's do it. Let's have a look.
All right, let's go.
So my goal as a security analyst is right now is to analyze all the dependencies that we use in our company. And I asked Juni, like, hey, can you help me analyze my dependencies? I know I'm using this like Netty library, which is a low-level networking library in Java. And I want to understand, what do we depend on? So I asked Juni, and it generated this project for me, and I can run it, and it kind of works. Like, it generates some dependencies for me, like a bunch of things it's using. But then I realized, okay, this is not probably all it's using, because my dependencies can have their own dependencies. So I need to basically take into account transitive dependencies. So I ask Juni, print transitive dependencies, and now it will start working.
A few moments later.
Juni has finished. Let's look at the code. It added something here. So basically in the main part of the program where it starts looking for transitive dependencies, which seems good. And now we can navigate to this print dependency tree to see what it actually does. And it seems to print the dependencies and then recurse to all its children and basically do the same thing over and over again, which is kind of expected what I think an application like this would do. We can even try to run it and see if it actually works. And it seems to run for way longer, well, which is kind of expected, because now it needs to look at like all the transitive dependencies. Ignat and Tagir, what do you think of this code?
And at least it looks consistent with the rest of the code in this class, in the same sense that it's not, maybe not better, not worse. So yeah, it's a good first sign, I think. Have you noticed anything?
Yes, it's a good thing to start with, but the first thing which immediately strikes my eye is exception handling in fetch child dependencies function, which actually does the network request to get dependencies from somewhere, I guess from Maven Central. Yes, probably from Maven Central. And if it fails for whatever reason, what will you do? You will just return an empty list, which is not how people usually handle exceptions. I mean, you should probably print that something got wrong, because anything can be wrong when you are working with network. And in this case, you will just return, okay, we have no dependencies, we have no vulnerabilities, everything is fine. I would not accept this.
Yes.
That was a really good point.
I agree.
Another thing which is maybe a bit strange, we didn't really specify, is that it will only include dependencies with compile and runtime scope. And if scope is null. And right now we don't really understand what scope is null means, but it seems definitely suspicious.
And also the comment, it's like, keep it simple. Include compile and runtime dependencies, and then skip optional dependencies. I don't know if I would... I mean, the comment doesn't explain much to me. To me, like, this comment is almost useless. I would like to... other than keep it simple, it wasn't in the prompt, right? It just decided to keep it simple, but then it's like, it doesn't tell me anything.
AI is lazy. It always wants to make as simplest as possible, which is actually not bad. Yeah, the comment basically repeats the code, so it's always against, like, if you read any online guide on how to write code comments, you will always see, like, don't repeat your code in the comment. Tell why it's done this way, not how it's done, because how it's done is already written in the code. So yes, comment is useful for this. But I would not say much about this implementation. I mean, we didn't specify which kind of dependencies should we include. So it decided to do some good guess. And this guess is not bad. And if you don't satisfy it with it, you can easily fix it even without AI. Just add some more conditions or remove some conditions. It's easy to fix it. So you have framework and you can adjust it in any way you want.
So given this project, if a human submitted that patch, would you approve it?
Well, as I said previously, I'm completely unsatisfied with exception handling. Okay. But aside from that, I don't see much things to nitpick. I must say that it was careful enough to care about cycling dependencies. So even if package A depends on B and package B depends on A, it will not go into Stack Overflow error. It will gracefully write already seen, which is really good. I may nitpick about recursion, because this function is actually recursive. But I would say that it's highly unlikely that you will have such a deep tree of dependencies to step into Stack Overflow error. So probably for beginning, it's more than enough to implement this recursive function. So in general, it's good, except exception handling.
Yes, for me, I guess it would really depend on what we're gonna do with this code. Like, am I going to roll this out to production anywhere? Probably I would not agree with merging this. But since I'm just like a security analyst and I want to just get the dependencies quickly. I think this solution was pretty good, and Juni generated it in reasonable time, so it definitely made me more productive if this is what I wanted to do. I think if I was an inexperienced developer, I would still have to go into the documentation and understand, okay, what kind of dependencies are there, what kind of type of dependencies, and which one do I actually need to care about. In this case, probably it's also possible to use AI and ask AI, like, okay, give it more context, because now we just asked it to print the dependencies, but we didn't really specify why we want to print the dependencies, and maybe if we did, it would generate something more useful for us or something more accurate.
Yes, that's a very important point. Like, Juni can generate a code for you, and it can generate quite decent code, not so bad code. But you should really understand what do you want. And if you don't actually understand, then the result could be anything. The idea of this project is kind of strange, mostly to evaluate the technology rather than doing something practical. It's to create an implementation of bcrypt, crypting hashing algorithm from scratch. So, bcrypt is like more advanced, more modern way to get a hash of your string, like MD5 or SHA-1 or something, but it's much more secure, much more modern. So, and of course, there are many libraries which can do it for you, but I just want to get it right in my project to minimize dependencies. Probably I want to put it into some very restricted environment where I cannot deploy a lot of code. I started with completely empty Java project, and I asked Juni to implement bcrypt hashing function from scratch in Java without using any external libraries. Sometimes it's quite important to give me a full implementation, not just a dummy class, because AI can be lazy and it can just generate a stub for you and say, like, the rest you can implement by yourself. So we don't want this, we want a full implementation. And after that, I've got a class which looks okay. It's really long one. So we have almost 500 lines of code, some tables with a lot of numbers. Yes, but if we take a look at public API, there are not so many methods: gamsort, hash PV, check PV. So it looks like something was implemented. But Ignat, do you have any opinion on this code? Could you review it?
I think you summed it up perfectly. Something was implemented. Like, how sure are you that this actually conforms to the standards and that it works? Not in the sense even that you can run it, but like, even if you can run it, even if you give it some string and it gives you something back, how sure can you be that you can trust it?
Ooh, I like that one.
So do I.
That's a really good question, because yes, if this is a cryptographic function, we should be really sure that it works, and it's really the code which only a few experts in the world can follow, can actually understand. So basically you need to compare the algorithm described in some scientific paper with actual code. There is probably not like one-to-one correspondence, so it will certainly take a lot of time to understand what's going on.
I think there's definitely a lot of suspicious parts about this implementation. Like, if you look at the check PW method, for example, you see that there are unused local variables, which is already like a bit red flag of something going wrong, or at least doing some work that maybe is not even needed. I would not trust this implementation. I know that some people have tried, like real experts have tried building like their own password hashing methods before, and some of them have been able to be reversed, and some passwords were compromised because of this. So I would especially not trust any AI to do this for me.
One interesting thing that I also kind of jumps at you almost is the code style. It feels like the LLM was trained on probably on some implementation of bcrypt from a very long time ago, where it tried to adapt like maybe, a bunch of solutions into one. And it feels like the code style is very opinionated, but at least it's consistent. And there are some weird things like it declares static methods in uppercase. And then it sometimes declares multiple local variables on the same line. It adds final to local variables again everywhere, almost everywhere. This is not necessarily how I would write code nowadays.
You can remember code style of Doug Lee, for example, which is very special. And if you go into Java util concurrent, you can like smell that it different from what you see outside. And you would not say that, oh, Doug Lee, you are writing Java the wrong way, because for this task, it's okay. But here, it looks like it just seen this code style, but don't understand why it exists. One other thing which I noticed is that there is a char64 method, and it checks for Java char variable to be whether it's less than 0 or not. And this check is clearly redundant because char variable is never less than 0, it's unsigned. And you know it in Java, there is a static analyzer warning, but probably indeed it's seen some similar code on C++ or whatever, where types have different bounds, so I don't know.
Like, well, next step is to, pick it up, throw it away, and then import some library and to use a library instead.
Like, is it really working? Can
we check now, do you think?
12 seconds later.
Hello world. Oops. Array index out of bounds exception.
It's not good. It's not good.
Index 996 out of bounds for length.
It's one of the exceptions you don't want to get.
Okay. Good luck debugging.
Yeah.
It says good luck debugging. And yes, you were probably right. It's better to throw this code away, because my level of understanding is far below, and I cannot fix anything here. Well, I can probably ask Junior to fix, but I really doubt it will succeed.
But also, to be fair, I would come to that conclusion even if it was submitted by another developer. Like, I would still pick it up and throw it away politely.
I don't know who wrote them and whether they were like cryptographic experts, but at least they were professional software developers, and I would trust AI less than any developer probably.
Okay, lesson learned. I will use libraries for cryptography instead of trusting AI.
Our colleague, Siva, the Java developer advocate, has actually developed a Fire app. It's the hottest new thing in town. It's a bookmarking app. So what this does is it allows you to add bookmarks and add a description to them, add a URL, a title. It's still being tested, but it'll be shipped soon. So now I want to ask Juni to add a feature to it, which is to add auditing. In other words, I want to know when a bookmark is added. I want to know who added it. If the bookmark was changed, say the description was changed, I want to know who changed it and when, so that, if something suspicious happens, we can trace it back and see who did what, and maybe revert to a previous state. So I've asked Juni to add, to implement auditing support without giving it anything else to feed off of. So, it was free to choose the implementation that it wanted, and it went with some I want to say standard implementation that comes out of the box, the Spring. So what it added is it added some code to the existing classes, and it added some new classes, namely the two new classes being auditable entity, which is an abstract entity that kind of adds the fields that will be used by all of the other entities. So when the change was made and by whom. And the other class is auditing config, which provides the user ID that is then stored in the auditable entity. And the other our existing entities are extending that abstract entity. So yeah, what do you think?
I think for me, first thing I would want to check for with such a change would be to see if there's a test, so I can actually debug through the code and see what it's actually doing and trying to understand the flow of what's happening.
There actually is no test, not a single one, even though we do have the abstract integration test class in our project. So I think maybe Juni should have figured out how to add a test. I guess we can ask it to.
I guess if we didn't ask it to do so, probably it won't do it.
I've asked it explicitly now, so Juni is. Hopefully, it's gonna add some tests.
Juni.
Later.
Juni added some annotations that come from Spring. How confident are you that it chose the correct annotations and that these annotations even exist?
Annotations surely exist before, because there is no red code in the editor, which is really good. Thanks to IntelliJ IDEA, it can do sanity check of what was generated. If it's like red, then something is definitely going wrong. But here we have annotations, they are resolvable. There is some documentation. So, and they look okay. Like the field named created at, and the annotation is created date, which makes sense.
No, looks believable. What do you think about the fields that we have in the entity? So would that be enough maybe for auditing? The thing that kind of that I noticed is that it doesn't show what was changed. As in, if the description was changed from one to another, then we don't see that change, right? And just saying that something changed is not super helpful, right? So if somebody changes a good bookmark to something malicious, then we wouldn't even know. We would know who made some changes, but we wouldn't know which person did it.
Yes, it's a problem. And another problem I see looking at this code is that we will see only who made the last change. But if we have several changes for the same entity, you have no idea. Like, you have a malicious change in description, then legal change in the URL. And you will only see the data about the legal change. So I would say that this is not what would I expect from auditing.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that would be good as like the first iteration? Let's say if we shipped it now, but then we improved it next time, or would that not be enough? Would you ask the person submitting this to add like a separate table for an append-only log?
I would probably say, like, throw it away and do it again.
Even that.
But to be honest, you said add auditing support. You didn't clarify the task. Probably this was a problem. If you say, like, create separate table for auditing events or something like this, it may probably work better.
See, this is what AI does not do and cannot do. It cannot blame me, right? So you're saying it's my mistake. I admit I didn't give it much detail on how to implement it.
Which brings us
probably
to the question: can somebody who is not expert in this area really wipe code the secure application? Because here, probably, if you don't know how to do auditing, probably you might be satisfied with this solution. But it's not what production quality solution should look like.
Yes. Another thing to note is that it created in the auditable entity, it created various columns, and some of them are not nullable, but some of them are. So, for example, if you look at created by, it is nullable because by default, Spring columns are nullable. And in this case, you would be able to create some kind of bookmark that's created by a null. And this doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, at least. So,
but given that at the same time, created at would not be null.
yes.
So it was created, and you know when, you just don't know by whom.
Yes.
Which is weird, yeah. In the meantime, Junie actually generated some tests. We can have a look at that. So it added 2 tests, auditing integration tests, and then user context utils tests. Looking at the auditing test, I mean, it is using the abstract test, the abstract class that we have, with the test setup, which is good. So let's run it. Let's see if it actually works. Okay, so the test ran successfully. Now the only question is if it did anything useful. If like the body of the test is fine, but the test is green, right? But then is it useful?
In general, I think it's useful. Like, so here, I would be happy with this. I mean, again, I've never wrote a single integration test for Spring application. And this test is very, very basic. It tests only one scenario, like something was created and no modification, only one user created by and last modified by the same user, so only one scenario. But still, it's a good start to write more tests. So, because if I were to figure out how to do it by myself, I would probably spend like half an hour reading online docs or whatever. But now I have a good framework and I can start with this and add as many tests as I like to test other scenarios. So I think Junie is really helpful here.
I think I might also approve this, even if, you know, some senior Spring developer might look at this and say, oh, this could have been done in another way, in a better way. But then when you look at the existing tests, Junie implemented its tests in the same way that the existing tests are implemented in, right? So from that perspective, even if I don't like Junie's tests, it's not necessarily Junie's problem. It's more so that the style of or how the tests are implemented in this project are done this way. So
that's actually a good point, that Junie tries to mimic existing style of the project, so it conforms to your code style. And if you are writing this project in some way, it agrees to write it in the same way. It's very good.
Okay, so when reviewing the AI generated code for 3 projects, I noticed myself that I was kind of reviewing it in the same way that I treat random Stack Overflow snippets. And there I basically ask myself 2 questions. First question is, do I need to understand this code? Because there are some cases when you don't. When it's a throwaway code, or if it just works, you know, you're doing image recognition or something, like I'm not going to understand it even if I read it. But I also don't need to understand it as long as it works, if it's, let's say, for a pet project. If I do need to understand it, then I have the second question, do I actually understand it? Because and not just the code, not the, you know, syntax and whatever, like that there are no errors, but the high level idea of how something should be implemented. As in, if auditing was implemented, is it implemented in the same way that I would expect it to be implemented? Or if it was bcrypt or whatever else, do I actually understand the algorithm behind bcrypt? So those would be my 2 primary questions. If I don't understand the code, I'm not going to approve it, and I'm not going to, you know, ship it to review.
Yes, I fully agree. It really depends on the requirements of the project you're working on. Like, are you going to throw away this code and never deploy it? Okay, fine. You don't need to fully understand what's going on. If it works, right? If you're working on a web server and, you know, processing some user input, you might want to check, okay, am I sanitizing the data? Am I handling everything securely? If you're working on some like C++ project, you might want to care about memory. Like, am I freeing all my memory? Do I not have any memory leak? So it really depends, like what your requirements are, what your technology is, like what kind of projects you're working on, in what kind of areas you need to pay attention to.
I mostly agree with this. It heavily depends on the project. Usually I work with huge project with long history of changes with a lot of contributors. And if I review code in this way, in such project, I would ask first, do we actually need this change? Does it make the project more complex? Does it make it easier to maintain or hard to maintain? Will we have problems in the future after this change? Because sometimes you can write a code which works, which produces expected result, but it really complicates the stuff. So it's still non-acceptable in this case.
What's the saying? The best code is the code that you don't write, or something along those lines?
Yes, exactly. And even better,
bug-free, best performance.
Even better code is the code that you can remove.
From my experience, at least as of right now, AI agents such as Juni are really good at maybe implementing features in the places that, are kind of maybe not obvious, but there is some structure to the project. There are some examples that it can, look at and implement the code in the same way, but it tends to be very bad at like big architectural changes or refactorings, especially anything involving modules, anything that spans just, or if there are no examples and you're asking it to implement some pattern, like it starts struggling. And at that point, I think it becomes much easier for me to just implement it myself or give it some example, or I spent too much time revising the prompt. So yeah.
I think they really good at generating something which is more or less simple but takes a lot of time. Like if I have a task and I understand that it's kind of repetitive task, nothing particularly new, probably somebody in the world already did this, then I can easily ask Juni, and the result could be satisfactory, or at least it could be a good first approximation to start with. If it's part of your private project, so Juni have never seen it as open source, have never learned on it, it implements some non-trivial algorithm, something really new, then it may probably don't understand what I actually want. And sometimes that problem itself is not well formulated in my head. Like I cannot simply express the problem with English words, so it's easier to me to express it in Java language than in English language. And writing a good prompt also takes time and takes effort. And sometimes it's easier for programmer with programming experience just to start with code.
In my experience, they're really good if there's a lot of examples already out there on the internet where it can, take examples from and basically just paste them into your code and maybe slightly adjust them. But we saw today with the bcrypt example, it's not always the case that even if there are like real examples of just perfectly fine implementations, that this will also follow these implementations. So you have to be very careful. But when you don't have many examples, it will get worse and worse, and the quality will get worse. And in this case, I would say probably it's easiest to just write it yourself.
As we saw in this review, AI coding tools can be a fantastic productivity boost, but they're not a substitute for the skills of an experienced developer. They can write code, but it still takes you to turn it into quality code.
And knowing how to do that means you can use AI tools to their full potential. Combine the AI boilerplate with your expertise to make the final product.
We hope you enjoyed this video and picked up some tips for getting the best out of your AI coding agent. Next time you're coding with an agent such as Juni, make sure to give them a try. And let us know in the comments, what would you have done differently in our code example? Or share your best or weirdest AI-generated code moments. We'd love to hear them. If you liked the video, give it a like, maybe subscribe, and tell us what you'd like to explore next.